What's up, everybody? And welcome to the Language Input Podcast. Today I'm bringing you a solo episode, okay? Because I've been focusing on interviews lately, and I'll continue to do so in perpetuity. So no worries there, because I love it, and I'm loving those interviews a lot, and I think they're bringing a lot of value. So I'll continue to use them on the podcast. But I thought about starting a new section on the podcast as well, in which it's just going to be me here. So a solo episode, like I said. But I'll be answering questions that you're sending me, or things that you're worried about when it comes to your language learning journey, or whatever it is, right? So just before we get into the episode, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below with any question you may have when it comes to the language acquisition process, your specific journey, your issues, advice on anything related to that field. And if you listen to this episode on any podcast platform, if you can leave your message, same thing. Just, let me know what questions you have, because I'll be more than happy to help you out and create an entire episode to answer that specific question. Okay. So yeah, with that being said, here's the intro, and let's get into the episode. All right. So the question I got, and again, I wanted to do this because I get a lot of questions all the time, and other questions that I see, around the internet, not specifically directed at me, but that I think is worth trying to answer, because, my main goal is to bring as much value as possible to, like I said, help as many people as possible realize that we can all learn any language when you're in the process, because I'm convinced. Because I've seen both sides of the equation, believe me. So, we can all do it. I'm convinced. And I think this format can bring a lot of value as well. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and create these solo episodes along with full interviews. So don't worry. There will be plenty of content for you. And yeah, today I want to answer the question about how to deal, or what to do when you're having a bad day, or an off day, or an off week, or a bad couple of days when it comes to your language learning journey. When you're feeling frustrated and you feel like the process is not really working, or you're not really progressing as much as you'd like to, right? Because I got this question, but I think it's one of the questions that I've seen a lot in different places, because it's important, right? And because I've seen it everywhere, the first thing I want to say is that it happens to absolutely every single one of us, right? So it's part of the process. So I think it's important to say that, because I don't want you to think that if you're having an off day, it's your fault, or that you're not good at languages, or what I mean, right? Like, it's something that happens to everyone, So I think it's important to realize that, because I think you're gonna feel more relaxed knowing that it's not about you being bad at languages, or it's not about the process not working with you specifically, right? We all go through it, believe. And then, to me, the most important thing is that almost always, when it comes to this question, when it comes to feeling frustration, when you feel like you're having those off days, when it comes to learning your favorite language, almost always that comes from trying to communicate too early. I'm convinced. And again, it's a consequence of the traditional grammar approach that pretty much told us to start producing from day one, which we already know it's impossible. That's not how the language mechanism works, right? And in a weird way, because of the dominance of the traditional grammar approach, and because we all went through it. Even if we already understand that comprehensible input is the key to the entire process, that's all we need, in a weird, deep, subconscious way, we still believe, that we gotta try speaking. And if we're not speaking, we're not learning. And if we're not speaking as much as we'd like to, there's something wrong with it. The process is not working, and things of that nature, right? So it's also, I believe it's important to realize that it's coming from the dominance of the traditional grammar approach that we all suffered, right? So again, it's okay because we all went through it, and it's a natural consequence. But again, getting back to how to get over it, we already know comprehensible input is the key to the entire process, because that's how the language mechanism works. That's how it works for every single one of us when with our native languages, right? And it's a process that works 100% of the time. I won't get tired of repeating that, because it's not about talent. It's not about some people being more talented than others. It works for every single one of us already. So we all have the potential to do it again, right? But because comprehensible input is the key to the entire process, and output eventually shows up way farther down the line as a consequence, and this is a key word, consequence, okay? Output is a consequence and not the cause of our improvement, all right? We need to keep that in mind all times. So because of that, output is going to show up later, right? But we want to communicate as soon as possible, which I understand, of course, because that's our ultimate goal, right? So I totally understand it. But while I perfectly understand it, it's not going to change the fact that that's not how the process works, right? So I believe most of the times, if you're feeling frustrated, or if you're feeling like the process is not working, or that you're having an off week, or whatever it is, that's because, in a way, you feel like you should be able to communicate way better than you can right now, right? Which again has nothing to do with you, and it's not how the process works, right? But we're used to thinking that way. So to sort of challenge that thought, or challenge that feeling of having an off day, or feeling like the process is not working, you just have to remember that it's all about comprehensible input, that's all you need to focus on. And the fact that you can't communicate yet doesn't mean that the process is not working. And I get it that it's kind of tricky, because, with the traditional grammar approach, the quote-unquote good thing about it is we can actually measure it, right? Because you just go to a language class and you've learned a new role, right? So when you go home, you feel like you've learned something new, right? You can measure it. Obviously, we all know what that leads to, right? that approach, all it leads to is, not being able to communicate and having to think about absolutely everything you want to say beforehand, right? Which is mentally tiring and just impossible to sustain. So the quote-unquote problem with the comprehensible input way, which is just not the crazy way, it's just how the language mechanism works, and how it's worked for every single person on earth forever, right? It's not so easy to measure it, right? Because you're relying on comprehensible input, and the process is actually subconscious. So you can't really control how much you've learned on any specific class or a day, or But again, it's just how the process works, So there's some, a little bit of faith there. So you gotta trust the process. But again, I'm not asking you to trust a crazy process or something that I'm just making up on the fly right now. It's the same process by which we all acquire our native languages. So, if you stick to it, if you keep getting comprehensible input, sooner or later, you're going to get there. you're gonna get where you want to be. You're gonna be able to communicate, but you need to understand that's gonna come later on down the road, after a lot of comprehensible input. Okay. And we all know the good thing about comprehensible input as well is, even though you can't really communicate the way you like to yet, you're actually enjoying the process because you're listening to podcasts that you're interested in, you're reading books, or you're attending classes in which you create stories, whatever it is, but you're actually enjoying the process. It's not that hard-working, boring process that we're all used to with the traditional grammar approach, right? So I think that helps when it comes to being more patient about it, because you're actually enjoying it. So, you're willing to just keep doing it until it works, right? Not until it works, but until output starts to show up, which it will. And then, when I look into my own journey, when I'm learning a new language, while you can't really measure how much you've improved, like I said, but what I try to look at is how much I can actually understand, from 2 months ago to right now, for example, right? Because you're not gonna you're not gonna be able to notice how much you can communicate as opposed to 2 months ago, because again, it's not how it works, right? And obviously even more so at the beginning because you can't communicate at all yet, right? But you can actually feel how much you've improved on how much the process is working by realizing how much you can understand now as opposed to how much you could understand a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, a month ago, 7 months ago, a year ago, whatever, or as long as you want to look back, So I think that's also important, and it really helps me sort of calm down as well, because I totally trust the process. But like I said, we've all been programmed to think in the traditional way, the grammar way, when it comes to languages, right? So even if you're totally convinced by this idea and you totally trust the process like I do, there's going to be times in which, you need that sort of realization that you can actually understand way more than you used to, right? Just 3 months ago. So that's important as well. And then, I said this is most of the times that's the reason behind that frustration, not being able to communicate the way you'd like to. But it also could come from the input itself, from not being able to understand as much as you'd like to, again, right? And first of all, as this person who asked me the question told me, sometimes it feels like, even like the same series or the same type of book or the same podcast, sometimes you're just more tired one day, or the vocabulary is a little bit different, or they're just talking about a topic that you're not so familiar with, right? So it feels like you're having a tough time that day. So it might be just that, okay? So it's totally okay. But also, it might be that you're trying to understand resources that are way beyond your ability to understand. So you just you just need to find something easier, and you'll get back later on to that research that you were trying to understand before, right? Because I'll say it again, the fact that you can't understand a specific research at any given point doesn't mean that the process is not working. It doesn't mean that you're not good at languages. All it means is you didn't get to that point yet. That's it. So you just need to find something easier, get more comprehensible input, and you'll get there later on. It's that simple, again, right? But sometimes we get, we sort of get, too proud about it, if that makes sense. Like I really have to understand this, I'll take it personally. Now I'm just exaggerating, right? But I felt that myself. Like you're trying to understand specific resource, and you really see you can't, but you try to force the issue a little bit. I don't know if it's pride or what is it, but again, it makes no sense, because like I said, it just means that you didn't get to the point yet, and you will. if you continue to follow the right principles, you will. And I get the need to sort of stretching yourself a little bit, because that's probably going to mean that you're going to be able to access more complex and interesting resources. I get that. Like I said, I've done that myself, because I've talked about using cartoons or comic books early on when you're starting with the language, and that might not be the most interesting of resources for us adults, right? But again, it's a temporary thing that's going to give you access to more complex and interesting resources, like I said. And you can always go to a teacher, try to find content on YouTube for teachers specifically creating videos for language students. So there's ways around it, okay? But it's just a matter of a little bit of patience, and a few months later or a few weeks later, you're gonna be able to start understanding way more complex and interesting resources, and from that point on, it's really downhill, right? Because the moment you can actually understand podcasts or books or series or resources that you were already consuming in your own language, you're off to the races, right? Because it's real pleasure then. So I get that you want to get to that point, but forcing the issue too much when it comes to the type of resource that you want to understand is not going to help you, right? If it's not comprehensible, right? Because we need to understand what's going on. All right. So that's it for today's episode, and I hope it was helpful. And like I said, I think we've all gone through it at some point. We continue to go through it, because it's it's the nature of the process, I guess. But I really believe most of the times it comes from not being able to communicate the way we'd like to, which is always going to be there if we don't realize comprehensible input is the key to the entire process, and that's all we need to focus on. And again, all I'm asking you to do is to trust a process that worked for every single one of us. And it worked for you already when you were a kid. So, the thing is, kids don't have the ability to consciously control the process, right? So they don't have the ability to mess up the entire process like we adults do. But believe me, with time, you get used to it, you understand it, and it gets way, way more interesting and compelling and, and pleasant. All right. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Hope you enjoyed it, like I said. And whatever question, opinion you have on today's topic, feel free to let me know, to leave your comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to help you out and answer your question. All right. So I'll hear you in the next episode, and have a good day, everyone, wherever you might be. Bye-bye.